What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about the biggest questions in the MMA community right now. Questions with different fighters, different fights coming up, who's going to win different fights. These are the questions that I think about all the time in the MMA community that I think need to be shed a little bit more light on, break down for you guys a little bit, because if I'm wondering about them, I think you guys are too. So these are just the questions that I want to talk about. These are the questions that I think are super important in the MMA and UFC community right now. But before we jump into the YouTube video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the UFC content. And please go down there and smash the post notifications button just so you guys are always updated with the most recent MMA content that drops. Now, let's jump right into the video. The top 5 most unanswered questions in the UFC right now. Just to lay this out there, none of these questions are in a ranking video. These are just the top 5 overall questions. So the first one I want to start with is Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. Who is going to win this fight? Because this is a question that I've been asking myself for the past couple of weeks, that I cannot pick an individual to win this fight. It is so close on paper that truly I just don't see a way to confidently pick. I've talked about it many times. Ilia Topuria is one of the best prospects in the UFC. When he fought Josh Emmett, I was so impressed by his performance. Going in there and absolutely dismantling a veteran like that was so impressive. But his performance versus Alexander Volkanovski was only more impressive than his fight with Josh Emmett and his fight with Bryce Mitchell. So I do think that Ilia Topuria is one of the best blossoming prospects in the UFC right now. But Max Holloway is that old dog in the featherweight division. These two are just going to go in there and throw down with one another. And you know, Max Holloway might be an older fighter, but he just beat Justin Gaethje at UFC 300, giving him so much momentum going into this fight against Ilia Topuria. He's 3-0 in his last 3, beating Arnold Allen, the Korean Zombie, and Justin Gaethje, which are incredible opponents. Ilia Topuria is undefeated 15-0 in his last 15, which is truly amazing. So we have this clash of alpha dogs in this fight, and I just don't know who to pick to win. It is one of those fights that I'm going to have to do a lot of research in, a lot of stylistic matchups, a lot of different tendencies is going to really bring this fight. These two styles are completely different in the striking department. As I always say, Ilia Topuria's striking is quality over quantity. Max Holloway is the complete opposite. He is quantity over quality. Now, I'm not saying that neither of them don't do the opposite, but Max Holloway throws out a lot of volume, while Ilia Topuria is a massive power puncher. But truly, I think about this all the time of who is going to win this fight between Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria, and that is my first big question that is in the UFC right now that I just cannot answer. My second massive question that is really unanswered is, how did Alex Pereira versus Khalil Roundtree Jr. come to fruition? I know Dana White said that Magomed Ankalaev he took a fight prior to this fight being announced, but I don't, there's always ways to work this around. I don't see why you couldn't take Magomed Ankalaev out of that fight and give Roundtree Rockage at UFC 308 and still make Pereira versus Ankalaev at 307. If Magomed wanted it that bad, there could have been a way for it to make the fight right then and there. So truly, it baffles me of how Khalil Roundtree Jr. skipped the line. Now, I am such a Khalil Roundtree Jr. fan. He's one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. He swings for the fences. He's an incredible talent. But this fight going up against Alex Pereira, and Pereira is going to absolutely kill this man. It's just a stylistic matchup. He's a lot bigger than Pereira. He's just a lot stronger. I think he's faster than Roundtree. And, you know, it's one of those things that Roundtree could clip him, but I think Alex Pereira is just too good, man. And I think that there's no way that Khalil Roundtree Jr. can win this fight. So I think having a fight with Magomed Ankalaev would not only be a better fight, but also like a long-lasting fight. Now, the 3 minutes that Pereira versus Roundtree is going to last is going to be fun. Believe me, Khalil is going to be in there swinging. These two are going to be swinging versus one another. But Magomed Ankalaev has deserved the shot. He beat Johnny Walker. He tied with Jan Blachowicz. He beat Anthony Smith. He challenged for the title and he tied in that fight. And I understand the big reason that this fight couldn't have happened, or possibly couldn't have happened, is Dana White doesn't like the boring nature of Magomed Ankalaev, which I wish he would come out and say if that was the biggest thing, because then that would really solve this question. It's just, it seems a little scamish and a little just interesting of how this fight came into fruition, considering that Magomed Ankalaev was, you know, unequivocally next for this title shot, and all of a sudden Khalil Roundtree Jr. came in there. it just raises some questions in my head of how this fight really happened, and that is why it is one of my biggest unanswered questions in the UFC currently. My next biggest unanswered question in the UFC is, who's Belal Muhammad gonna fight? Like, what is Belal Muhammad's next move in that welterweight division? Because we got two #1 contenders, quote unquote. Now, I only think one of them is real, and that is Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat Rakhmonov is a monster. That man is so good, and he deserves the title shot. But the UFC and Belal are trying to throw in Kamaru Usman into that mix. Now, I know Usman and Belal are going back on Twitter. I can link that video right here, but it is one of those things that I think that Shavkat Rakhmonov just deserves the title shot, no questions asked. He is 18-0, 18 finishes. All of his finishes all of his fights in the UFC have been finishes. All the fights in his career have been finishes. And going up against someone like Belal Muhammad, I think would actually be a pretty fun fight. Shavkat's a monster. Belal Muhammad's got a great gas tank, and this would be a fight I think would be a very good fight to test Shavkat Rakhmonov, and probably one of the hardest opponents for him. But the UFC seems stuck on possibly offering Kamaru Usman the shot, and this would be off of a money standpoint. Now, do I think it's going to happen? No, but the unanswered question in my nature is, why is the UFC pushing for Usman so hard? I understand Usman is older. I understand that he doesn't have that much tread on the tires. And I understand he could go in there and beat Belal Muhammad, but there just isn't a market for Kamaru Usman to fight right now. A lot of the fans of the community understand that he's 0-3 in his last 3. He's lost to Leon Edwards twice and Hamzat Chimaev once. So it's just really just baffling for me that everyone in Dana White and all these people want to see Usman in the octagon versus Belal Muhammad, when I feel like a good amount of the loyal MMA community wants to see Shavkat get his rightful shot. So truly, this is one of the unanswered questions of mine, is who is Belal Muhammad going to fight? Why is the UFC pushing Kamaru Usman so hard? And why isn't Shavkat secured a title shot against Belal sometime maybe 310, 311, 312 coming up here in the next couple of months? My next unanswered question is just something that I just don't even know if it's ever going to happen, and that is Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor. Like, is this fight going to ever happen? Dana White constantly keeps teasing McGregor coming to return, and I understand he has 2 fights on the contract, but is this ever going to happen? Conor McGregor just announced he's running for president of Ireland. Like, there is no way that this man is going to return to the octagon, especially to fight a killer like Michael Chandler. There just truly isn't ever going to be a way that this happens, but there's always talk about McGregor returning. You imagine McGregor being the president of Ireland and then coming to the US to fight? Like, that just doesn't sound right at all. So it just baffles me that this is still talking, McGregor's still pushing for a fight, and it just really is an unanswered question of, is this fight gonna happen? Because there's so many signs that point no, but there's also so many red flags that point yes. So it's just one of these just absolutely confuddled messes inside the UFC that I just don't understand if this fight is going to truly take place. Now, if McGregor v Chandler does take place, it would be an incredible fight. Michael Chandler swings. Conor McGregor is one of the best strikers in the UFC. We all know Michael Chandler is not taking this fight down against McGregor. So it would be an incredible striking match and stand-up, and a fight that Conor McGregor could win if he looks like he's in his old form. But truly, I just don't know if Michael Chandler is going to be able to go in there and beat someone like McGregor, if this fight even happens, because I just don't think it's going to happen. I made a video the other day on Conor McGregor. I'll link that here, but it just really, I don't know, he's teasing at a return. He wants to get back in there, and I just don't know if this fight is ever going to happen. And that is such a big unanswered question, is why is the UFC pushing this fight so hard with Conor McGregor if it's not even going to happen? Because I know Dana White understands that McGregor has 2 fights on his contract. He's a massive pull to the organization, so it makes sense that he's, advocating for a fight. But if he's not going to jump in there, there's no reason in telling the fans that he's going to fight when it's not, because that's only going to bring disappointment around the community. And that is my 4th biggest unanswered question inside the UFC. And my last biggest unanswered question inside the UFC is, I know Jon Jones is probably going to fight Stipe Miocic. He's leaked watching footage of Stipe, but is this fight with Tom Aspinall ever going to happen? We need a Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones fight. End of story, period. We got Jon Jones chirping at Aspinall, saying that he's nothing inside the UFC, of how he has to make his own legacy. But Tom Aspinall says that if you're truly about that life, being the GOAT, you got to go in there and fight me. And I think that is 100% valid. Beating Tom Aspinall for Jon Jones would do more for Jon Jones' heavyweight legacy than beating someone like Stipe Miocic. And in my opinion, Beating someone like Stipe and Cyril Gane combined is nowhere near beating Tom Aspinall right now. Tom Aspinall is the future of the heavyweight division. He's the current undisputed champion. He's super hungry. He said that he went on a trip to Spain, and after his 1-week trip, he's back already in training camp. Not training camp, but his fight preparation camp, out of all of his vacation time and whatnot, to get into a fight possibly with Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic. Tom Aspinall's had some of the hardest lines in UFC history, saying that he'll retire Jon Jones without even fighting him. He'll beat Stipe Miocic and Jon Jones on 1 hour notice at UFC 309 in Madison Square Garden, probably where Stipe vs. Jon is going to happen. But my biggest unanswered question is, what is the future of Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall going to be? We know that Jon versus Stipe is going to happen. We want to see that fight. Believe me, anytime we get to see Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic battle it off, we take it. But the fight that every fan inside the UFC wants to see is a battle between Tom Aspinall, the new cat in town, fighting Jon Jones, one of the greatest of all time in the UFC department. And that is why I believe that this is the biggest unanswered question inside the UFC. No matter what you talk about, Jon Jones fighting Tom Aspinall needs to happen. Why isn't it being pushed right now? Why isn't Dana White allowing Jon Jones to fight someone like Tom Aspinall? And if it was my opinion as the UFC creator and matchmaker, I would say that you have to unify the belt before doing anything else. And the fact that we're disrespecting Tom Aspinall in that standpoint is truly baffling to me. And that is why I believe that this fight needs to happen right now. And my biggest question is, why isn't it happening? And that is why this is one of my unanswered questions on this list. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA. And please let me know down below in the comment section, what do you think are some other unanswered questions? And what do you think about these unanswered questions? I know no one knows how Khalil Roundtree Jr. versus Alex Pereira really came into fruition. Who's going to win in Ilya Topuria versus Max Holloway? Why isn't Shavkat Rakhmonov automatically getting a title shot against Belal Muhammad? Conor McGregor returning to the octagon, is it ever going to happen? And Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, why isn't it being booked right now? That's the biggest fight in the UFC that you could ever make, and truly it is one of the most exciting fights in that heavyweight division you could put on. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the UFC content. And please, like I said, leave a comment down below thinking about what you think about this list that I just made of the top most unanswered questions inside the UFC currently. But we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and if you guys would love to support the channel, that would mean so much. Go down there and hit the subscribe button if you guys enjoy MMA content daily. And while you're down there, turn on the post notifications, leave a like on the video. Every little bit of support helps, and every subscriber means so much. But thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.